Chaotic and dysfunctional. The COVID inquiry hears from one of Boris Johnson's closest advisors, Dominic Cummings.
Plans to close railway station ticket offices in England hit the buffers. After a massive public backlash, they will now stay open. Good morning from Liverpool Live Street, where I'll be hearing from industry experts and campaigners.
In sport, how Saudi Arabia were left as the only country in the running to stage the 2034 World Cup as the deadline passes with no rival bid emerging.
Hello, you right? I'm Lenny. I'm going to be joining you today to do some funny things.
He is Children in Need's newest and youngest host, BAFTA award-winning Lenny Rush. We're going to meet him.
Good morning. We've got some heavy rain pushing northwards and eastwards through the course of today. Behind it, sunshine and showers, but windy across the south. And it's later that Storm Ciarán makes its presence felt in the southwest, bringing heavy rain and damaging gusts of wind.
And XL bully dogs will be formally banned in the UK by the new year. Ministers announced that the dog will be added to the list of banned breeds under the Dangerous Dogs Act. XL bully owners have until January to apply for an exemption to keep their pet, and if it's granted, they'll have to keep the dog muzzled and on a lead when it's in public. The English Ice Hockey Association says from next year it'll be mandatory for players to wear neck guards. The announcement was made following the death of American ice hockey player Adam Johnson. His neck was cut by a skate blade during a game in Sheffield on Saturday. Police are still investigating. Assisted dying on the Isle of Man could move a step closer as draft legislation is debated in Parliament. The plans would see residents with a terminal illness and no more than 6 months to live given the right to end their lives with help.
At this morning's newspapers, shall we? We're starting with The Guardian today, which leads on the Israeli airstrikes which hit Jabalia in northern Gaza. The paper reporting that Israel's military said the attack was targeting a key Hamas commander.
The Times focuses on what it describes as Sir Keir Starmer's threat to his shadow ministers as he tells them to stop calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. You'll know there's been a lot of dispute and debate about Keir Starmer's policy. He, instead of a ceasefire, is calling for a humanitarian pause. We're going to speak to David Lammy, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, here on Breakfast in the next hour. We'll talk to him about that.
The Daily Mirror headlines the diary entries of the former chief scientific advisor to the government, Sir Patrick Vallance, revealed as part of the ongoing COVID inquiry, in which he wrote that the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson was obsessed with older people accepting their fate. In relation to the virus, Mr Johnson's spokesman has denied to comment on the evidence, but said he is cooperating fully with the inquiry.
The Daily Mail, meanwhile, turns its attention to Boris Johnson's former aide, Dominic Cummings, who it says was left squirming during yesterday's COVID inquiry session after what it calls his explosive and expletive-riddled messages were read out. You'd have heard them beeped in Ellie Price's report a little bit earlier in the programme.
And one story we just want to bring you from inside the Times today. Mondeo man, remember him?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there was that phrase that was coined several years ago about kind of a Mr Average.
Yes.
Who bought a Mondeo.
Yes, he did.
Drove his kids around in it, went to the golf club in it on a Saturday. Anyway,
Not so much.
He's got the last laugh because did you know that the value of a 20-year-old Mondeo has doubled, according to a well-known car resale website? Who would have thought that Mondeo man is cool again?
No, he was always cool. He was just misunderstood, Sam. He was misunderstood.
Do you know anyone with a Mondeo, John?
I do.
Yeah. You've got one, haven't you?
I have one. And now I'm having the last laugh.
Yeah, exactly.
The value of my car is not going to be soaring to anybody, I don't think.
Well, I think the average was around 1,100. It's gone up to obviously over £2,000 now, John.
In the money, there we go.
Well, let's take a look now at what's making the front pages of this morning's papers, and the Express leads with the evidence given to the COVID-19 inquiry today by Dominic Cummings and Lee Kane, with the headline, Revealed Orgy of Narcissism at Heart of COVID Failings. The Eye focuses on comments made privately by Mr Johnson that old people should have just accepted their fate when the virus struck so that young people could survive. Well, those remarks by the then Prime Minister also lead tomorrow's Times. The Mirror too makes it their top story. The Star depicts Boris Johnson as a clown and apologises for calling his government useless and moronic, when in fact they've now been shown to be much worse. Meanwhile, after Mr Cummings' repeated use of the C word in his evidence yesterday, the Telegraph says counsel at the inquiry accused him of feeding a toxic culture of misogyny at Number 10. The Mail's verdict: Mr Cummings has been left squirming after poisoning the response to COVID with toxic briefings against his colleagues. The Guardian, meanwhile, leads with the Israeli airstrikes, which have killed a number of people in a Gaza refugee camp. The Sun pictures a British police officer taking down posters of Israeli children held hostage by Hamas and asks, "How dare you?" Rail ticket Q-turn is how the Metro describes the decision not to close hundreds of railway ticket offices after a public outcry against the move. And the Financial Times leads with the closure of City firm Odey Asset Management 5 months after its founder, Crispin Odey, was accused of sexual assault and harassment. And if you want to see any of those front pages again or read the stories inside, you can scan the QR code on your screen.